Hi BookTube, this is Reads Stuff. I'm Debs. Welcome or welcome back. I'm going to talk to you today about a reading challenge that I've completed, my very first one. I'm very excited. I think I probably said in my first video for those who watched it that I actually only discovered BookTube in June the 18th to be exact. And the reason I know it was June the 18th is because that same day I found a reading challenge called In the Middle Challenge over at Mum's book collection, which is Donna, and her challenge started on June the 18th. And I thought, perfect, I can do that. Let's give it a go. So it runs from June the 18th until July the 16th, which is the middle of the year. And the idea is that there's lots of challenges to do with in the middle. So I've completed all of them and I thought I'd tell you about them. The first challenge was to read the next book in a collection. Now I have a collection of the Penguin Modern Classics. It's a boxed set of 50 that gives like a taster to various prominent authors from around the world. Some have been really good, some have been dreadful. So I read a few of those for the next book in the series. They're tiny. They run to between 50 and 60 pages. So I read a couple. The next few that I had, I read I Have More Souls Than One by Portuguese author and poet Fernando Pessoa. He's interesting because he writes under different personas, and he claimed that all of these personas were real people. So you have him in this very small volume, writing as himself, but then writing as three other distinct personas. And they don't necessarily agree with each other, but the poems in here I thought were great. So enjoyed that one. Next up was Shirley Jackson, The Missing Girl. Some short stories in here rather than poetry. Malice, deception, and creeping dread lie beneath the surface of an ordinary American life in these miniature masterworks. Really enjoyed these. It's got three stories in it. The Missing Girl, Journey with a Lady, and Nightmare. And I loved Journey with a Lady. It was really good. Final one of these was for Russian short stories, and these are short stories by people that I'd never heard of. They are four Russian authors, and I will attempt to pronounce their names. We have Galina Kuznetsova, Yuri Felsen, Nina Berberova, and Gator Gazdanov. And the thing they have in common is that they were all refugees from the 1917 revolution, and they had left Russia at that time and spent the rest of their lives in other countries. Um, Very interesting. Certainly like to read a few of those again. They're two women and two men. Like I said, I'd never heard of them, but I really enjoyed it. So that was the next book in a series, Penguin Modern Classics, and it was actually three books. Next one, a book from the middle of the shelf. This is my book from the middle of the shelf. It's also the middle of a series I'm in. Well, middle is number 2. I haven't yet read number 1. I have read numbers 3 and 7. I don't know why I don't read things in the right order, but they're all standalone anyway. I like this guy. He is very, very prolific. He's written more than 100 novels. I think he's most famous for something called the Railway series. I've not read any of them. This one is the Homefront Detective series, and I really like them. They are set in World War I, and it's interesting to read World War I period stuff without very many mentions of the First World War. This is about what happens at home in London, and it's a detective inspector and his sidekick who are clearing up the murders in London throughout the First World War years. So I like his characterization, I like his plotting, and I just find them a very enjoyable read. That was a book from the middle of the shelf. The next one, number three, was the book that I was in the middle of. I've been in the middle of this book for a long time. I don't know why, because it's brilliant. I love Colin Thubron. He's a travel writer. I have an absolute fascination with the Silk Road. This is The Shadow of the Silk Road, and it's a journey that he took from China all the way through to Antioch in Turkey, following the path of the Silk Road. He just writes beautifully, and it's almost, his prose is almost poetic. His descriptions are wonderful. He incorporates history, mythology, religion, politics, and I think he's brilliant. Anyway, I finally finished it. I don't know why it had been sitting half finished for so long, but it's done. The next book, read a middle grade book. I am a big fan of Scandi Noir. I love crime thrillers, and I particularly love Scandinavian ones. I am very fond of an author you may or may not know called Joe Nesbo. What I didn't know was that he also wrote books for children, and this is Dr. Proctor's Fart Powder, and it's hilarious. Um, it features Truls and Trim, terrible twins, who torment our main protagonists, Lisa, um, and Nilly, her friend, who's just moved into the street. They live near Dr. Proctor, who is a master of mad inventions. The thing about this is Joe Nesbo's plots for his adult crime novels are brilliantly intricate, intricate is what I'm trying to say. And this was just the same. Even though it was written for a youth audience, a young people's audience, it had just the same plotting skills as his crime stories. And it was also extremely funny. I've got another one. I'm going to read that too. After a middle grade book comes a mid-year reset. I did that. I can't remember what it was called. Mid-year freakout, I think. That was the very first video I did. So if you look below, if you haven't seen it, you'll be able to see that there. Next, a book that starts with the letter M. Moon Over Soho. Completely mad book. It again is one of a series of books. I think there's 8 in this one. I've read the first one. I thought it was something completely different. It's called Rivers of London, and I was convinced I was picking up a history book about the hidden rivers in London. It turned out to be a cross, well, they say on the back it's a cross between CSI and Harry Potter. It's about a magical world. No, it's about magical people in our world in London, and a police officer who is assigned to the previously one-man department that deals with crimes that are relating to magic. And it's mad. It's a madcap journey through some crimes. It involves Father Thames, Mother Thames, who are real people and at war. They have several, well, Mother Thames has several daughters, Father Thames has several sons, all of which are old tributaries of the Thames. Um, Peter Grant, our PC hero, is learning magic and Latin and Greek, and it's crazy and fun, and I loved it. The next prompt was to read a book that starts with the middle letter of your name. I call myself Debs. My name is actually Deborah. I introduce myself as Debbie, so I went with Debbie. Found a book beginning with B, happened to be the latest by one of my favourite authors, Ellie Griffiths. I love her crime novels. I have all of them. I pre-order them and will continue to pre-order them as long as she continues to write them. Her real name is actually Dominica De Rosa, and she writes under that name as well, but I haven't read any of those. I do like these, though. Bleeding Heart Yard is an actual place in London, and this book was about a school reunion of a number of prominent people. There are deaths, there are really good plot twists. Romped through that, loved it. Penultimate challenge was to read a book with middle in the title. I was going to reread Middlemarch, but then I thought I'd actually prefer to read something new. So I thought I might read some of the books I have about the Middle Ages, but I'm doing those for Historathon. So in the end, my husband has suggested this. Geoffrey Eugenides, Middlesex, Pulitzer Prize winner that I'd never heard of him. I struggled with the first 20 to 30 pages, and then it got really good. It's about a person called Callie, or Cal, Callie for the first half of their life, and Cal for the rest of it, who is born a hermaphrodite, but nobody notices, and spends the first 14 years of their lives being brought up as a girl, and after that decides to live as a man. It alternates between the present day and their family history, and they come from a family of Greeks who were living in Turkey and were chased out of Turkey by war, and went to live in Detroit with their cousin. The grandmother and grandfather of Cal are not only third cousins, they're also brother and sister. They live a long and incestuous marriage that only their cousin that they go to live with knows about. It's just a sweeping family saga that deals with ethnicity, it deals with gender issues, it deals with sexuality. And after those first 20 or 30 pages, I thought it was brilliant and I couldn't put it down. The very final challenge was to read a book published in June or July. Now, I had no idea how to find a book published in June or July that wasn't a new hardback, because I don't buy hardbacks really. And then I found that on Goodreads you can actually look it up, books published in June 2020 or whatever. And I found this that was already on my shelf. So I just went through the lists on Goodreads until I found one that I fancied that was on my bookshelves, and this one was indeed first published 2021, so it was June 2021. And I thought this was beautiful. It's the story of another crazily mixed up bohemian family, lots of marriages, remarriages, stepfathers, brothers, sisters, various hangers-on. But essentially it's a love story, and it's a love triangle. Elle, who is our narrator, has been staying at the Paper Palace, which is the family name for a holiday home on Cape Cod, since she could remember. And when she is about 14, she meets a young lad called Jonas, who is a couple of years younger than her, but they get on extremely well. He falls in love with her, she falls in love with him. They don't see each other for years. They both get married to different people, and then they run into each other. In the background, you have her mother and her grandmother and their string of relationships, marriages, step everything's. There is there's rape. I mean, it's a family saga that has real pace to it. It has crimes within it. It's a love story, but not a traditional type of love story. The the descriptions in here are wonderful, and in fact, although the story is completely different and the location's completely different, I found it quite reminiscent of Crawdads, in that there's a real sense of place in here. So the book charts 24 hours in modern time and about 50 years of family history that is discussed as Elle works out what's going to happen to this love triangle that she's in. Really good, really good. Read it in a day, um, and loved it. So that's the end of my very first readathon on BookTube. Thank you very much to Donna, who came up with all of these. I love taking part, and I'm sure I shall be doing lots more. So that's it for today. If you like the video, please give me a like, and love to have some more subscribers. It would be really nice to chat to everybody. Thanks for watching. See you soon.